policies of Vajpayee, or for that matter, I will even argue P.V. Narasimha Rao, despite being great policies, economically only, and having some interesting outcomes, prosperity, for instance, or opening up of the economy in Narasimha Rao's time, uh, people didn't resonate with it. What is the incentive then left for a politician to do good policy? Why not just giving freebies here and there and buying your way back to elections?
Now, if you have a tenure of 10 years, then you can give subsidies, all right. But if you do not have policies which lay the foundation for long term growth, you will run into trouble. For example, if you get too much subsidies and do not sort of mobilize enough resources, you will have the problem of fiscal deficit, you will have the problem of inflation, and the Indian voter is very sensitive to high inflation.
Welcome, Dr. Lahiri. All the introductions have been done, and I don't want to waste time anymore. All I want to say is I thoroughly enjoyed reading this book. It's double the size of my book, which is Reform Nation, on the same subject and around the same time. And I think it's far more detailed, with a lot more analysis, graphics, etc., which I did not get the opportunity to talk of. So I see this almost as an extension of my book for myself, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading the book. One problem, there is no index in the book, and I think a book of 780 pages or something ought to have an index. Otherwise, it's very well argued, and I mean, I don't have to agree 100% with what you say, nor you with me. As any two economists using the same kind of data, same arguments in the same time will come up with their own analysis. But nonetheless, it's a great read, and it's a very helpful guidebook to understand what happened in the Indian economy. To begin the book very well by bringing the political economy aspect, which is that do good outcomes result in re-election? Uh, what's your conclusion on that? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Is there a general rule you see? Does good economics deliver re-elections?
Thank you very much. I was telling my friend that I was waiting for my enemy to come because he's going to ask tough questions, I knew. This is the same question that led to the book, and that was President Zardari of Pakistan. We had gone to Pakistan on a board visit from the Asian Development Bank, and there Zardari Saab asked me what was the prospect for the South Asian region. So I told him that it's the Asian century, but I was not very sort of sanguine about the prospects of South Asia. He said, why? And now that I'm a politician, I'm a bit embarrassed to say it. I said, because Indian politicians promise a lot and deliver less. Having said that, I also added that I'm hopeful because we have now democracy all over South Asia. India has had it for a long time, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, even Bhutan to some extent. And in a democracy, I quoted Anthony Downs that politicians formulate policies to win elections. They don't win elections to formulate policies. So if people want growth, if people want development, then it will happen. But what Gautam has asked me is exactly this, that if that is the case, then winning elections, is it enough to have good policies? And what President Zardari said is, if that is the case, then why did Atal Bihari Vajpayee lose the election after India Shining? Now, it's a long story since time is limited. My take on India Shining period, I'm not talking about the advertisement campaign. BJP's former president Lal Krishna Advani ji has made it very clear that that may not have been appropriate at that time because the opposition used it. But my take on 2004 defeat of NDA and BJP is that it was not a defeat of the policies. Because if you look at the data very carefully, BJP's vote percentage went down, but it went down less than what the Congresses did. So Congress vote percentage declined more than BJP's, but Congress won more seats. So it was a disaster in terms of the alliance partners. Remember, BJP in NDA had changed from DMK to AIADMK, and AIADMK lost its shirt. Same was the case with Chandrababu Naidu. Same was the case with Mamata Banerjee in Bengal.
So, let me interrupt here. So, are you saying that uh, policies of Vajpayee, or for that matter, I will even argue PV Narasimha Rao, despite being great policies, economically only, and having some interesting outcomes, prosperity, for instance, or opening up of the economy in Narasimha Rao's time, people didn't resonate with it. Now, first past the stage, if we can get into the voting share, voting percentage, all that is fine for nuancing. But the bottom line is that they lost the election. What is the incentive then left for a politician to do good policy? Why not just get into destroying the balance sheet and giving freebies here and there and buying your way back to elections?
Gautam, allow me to get into a broader question after answering yours. See, PV Narasimha Rao's defeat in 1996. See, Narasimha Rao got embroiled in corruption cases. Remember the fertilizer case, the urea, then Harshad Mehta. I mean, it was everywhere and corruption was resonating everywhere. So Narasimha Rao, and also there was this question of the Congress party moving from a dynastic mode to a more democratic mode, because before 91, there hadn't been too many prime ministers from outside from Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi. So it was the first time it was not only a prime minister who was not from the Gandhi family, it was a prime minister who came from the south. Previously, all the prime ministers used to be from the Hindi heartland. So Narasimha Rao was a change. Now, on your question about what is the incentive for politicians to formulate good policies. So look at this in this particular way. Today, a young lady was escorting me to this place, and I was telling her that telling a young lady that, look, I'm spending on schools and your child will have a great education, that will resonate with the lady. But there are more problems which are more immediate, which calls for immediate solutions. And that basically leads to this politics of subsidies, which now giving 500 rupees to a lady and saying this for every woman, that has an immediacy. And the question is of trust. The question is of trust because when I promise you that I'll give you a good school or a good hospital, I can't do it overnight. You have to give me time. Whereas that 500 rupees is immediate. So immediate gratification. Now, having said that, I'm hopeful that democracy is delivering. Now, the people are giving mandates for not 5 years. We have seen UPA getting a mandate for 2 consecutive terms. The NDA has got 2 consecutive terms. The elections are just coming. We'll see what happens. Now, if you have a tenure of 10 years, then you can give subsidies, all right. But if you do not have policies which lay the foundation for long-term growth, you will run into trouble. For example, if you get too much subsidies and do not sort of mobilize enough resources, you will have the problem of fiscal deficit, you will have the problem of inflation, and the Indian voter is very sensitive to high inflation. The Indian voter is very sensitive to what is happening on the external front. The Indian voter wants development. So I'm hopeful that there will be a right balance. Am I saying that politicians will stop giving freebies? No. They will have to have this balance between immediate succor to the people who are suffering, but also at the same time laying the foundation for long-term growth.
You mentioned one more point, which is of corruption, that there were corruption charges against Narasimha Rao. In your book, you haven't said this now, but in your book, you mentioned corruption charges on Rajiv Gandhi as well. UPA too had corruption charges. Is corruption really a political issue? Is it important? Is it that important for getting re-elected or not, or being ejected out? Just a quick.
See, corruption, I think, my reading, I'm not a historian. Shopun is there. There are many friends here who know more about Indian history. Corruption has been there in India. It's not that corruption is a post-independent independence phenomenon. In fact, in 1952 or 1951, the father of our Madhya Pradesh, Arjun Singh, he was a minister in Pandit Nehru's cabinet. He got convicted on a corruption case. Corruption has got more salience in India now. Now the newspapers talk about it. Unfortunately, what has happened is that since I'm a politician, if I'm a politician, you immediately assume that I must be corrupt. But there is growing intolerance about corruption. I can tell you a few cases where bright political careers have been ruined. Lalu Yadav is one. Mayawati is another. There are plenty of cases where corruption has ruined careers. But is the intolerance towards corruption as much as it should be? The answer is no. Now, there is some amount of cynicism, particularly with, I don't write about it, with election funding. It's a very tough situation. The amount of money that you have to spend on fuel, the amount of money that you have to spend on your party workers. Incidentally, I didn't spend any money. So, I see the reality. You can't fight an election without money. And where will the money come from? Either the money will come from some people who will expect a quid pro quo, or you have to spend the money in anticipation of your earning later.
So I have many more questions, but I think this discussion is getting more interesting, so I'll push a little further. Freebies is a way to buy votes. We have seen that happen. But Rajasthan, it didn't work out, despite the OPS. Why?
That's the hope. So the fact is, now that I'm a city boy, I grew up and I was born and I grew up and I spent my entire life in cities, in India and abroad. But now that I know rural India, there is poverty. There is poverty. May not be as much as it was before, but still too many of our people are poor. And we must reach some kind of support to them. So that means that there has to be some kind of safety net, but implementing.
But sir, government servants, you cannot classify government servants as being poor. They are the highest paid. And if you look at the household data in terms of consumption, they are already up. They are already called super rich or something. I know the term is wrong, the word is wrong, but they are already super rich. Why would it work in Himachal, the OPS? It didn't work in Rajasthan. So is there an electorate issue? Is it as politics is a more complicated issue? So you cannot just bank on a freebie culture.
See, freebie culture, I think, will be neutralized if every political party is offering freebies. Then there is nothing to be gained, and there is a limit to how much you can offer. The second, I think, in terms of subsidies, the challenge is in identifying the poor. I mean, I give certificates. I'm a powerful man now that I'm an MLA. I can give income certificates to people. I normally don't give income certificates. How do I know what your income is? So I insist on the Gram Panchayat, the Sarpanch giving a certificate, or the BDO writing. Trust me when I say that everyone in my constituency has a monthly income of either 4,000 family income or 6,000. Now, I wonder at times how efficient they are in budget management. With 4,000 rupees, Gautam, I will not see you in this dress, I will find you suffering. But they manage somehow. So income has become an imaginary thing. Now, how do you identify the poor? We must find a method of identifying the poor because universal income support will cost us too much. And there is no reason why I think the people, my friends sitting in the front row, or me and you, we should be getting any income support. But how do you exclude us? The problem is of excluding us, and the problem is also of not including us, and the problem is also of excluding some of the poor. Now, this is a challenge. I don't have an answer, but we must find it.
Okay, so let's move further. Reform story began in 1991. You've explained it very beautifully, and all of us here who are students of economics know that the Statement on Industrial Policy 1991 changed the course of our country. Subsequent to that, what, in your opinion, would be the 2 or 3 biggest reforms that India has undertaken between 1991 and 2024?
So the first thing I continue to believe, my beliefs are somewhat classical. I believe the first thing is education. Now, education, we have solved the problem of enrollment, but as you must have seen from the ASER, the Pratham's reports, it's a tragedy. I visit many government schools. I was educated in a government system throughout. I never paid a fee of more than 9 rupees per month. But at our time, there were some schools and colleges and universities which are functioning fine. But now I find, though enrollment problem has been resolved, the quality of education suffers. And I also would like to add here that one of the failures, I'm a great admirer of Panditji, but one of the problems of the first 20 or 30 or 40 years after independence was this fear that if we educate our children, they will be uneducated, unemployed, and they will create problems. Now, with superior wisdom, I think superior wisdom, my answer would be don't worry about their jobs. Educate them. They will not only start something, they will employ the others. So, education is a must. Second is health. Now, health has improved, but not enough. Again, hospitals have been set up. I don't know how many of you have been to a government hospital. I keep going regularly. And you go to a hospital, you find there are not enough doctors. They're not, in my district hospital, there are no gastroenterologists. There are no surgical equipments. There are no oncologists. There are no neurologists. Now, health has to be improved. And the third, Gautam, is infrastructure. I continue to believe that we need more roads, we need airports, we need ports, and we need physical infrastructure. We have made a lot of progress, but there are miles to go before we stop. And last but not the least is ease of doing business. Ease of doing business is it's easier to talk about, but it's also a change in the mindset. If you don't change the mindset, and this almost, I haven't mentioned in this book, but I believe it's almost a Brahminical disdain, and I'm saying this because I'm a Brahmin by birth, Brahminical disdain for anyone making money. We must respect the people who are wealth makers.
True. So you jumped the gun on my question. I asked you which are the reforms over the past 30 years that have happened. You're saying that what we ought to do, and I agree with, I don't disagree there. So let me rephrase the question. Which leader would you say is the most reformist leader so far between 91 and today?
See, that is an easy question to answer because 91, there was so much to do that Narasimha Rao, in a way, can be easily sort of described as the Deng Xiaoping of India. 79, Deng Xiaoping started it. We did it 12 years later. Every year cost us a lot. Now, making a bonfire of industrial licenses, then not having any restrictions on foreign exchange, and not having an administered exchange rate. Those are easy things. Now, the second phase of reforms is much more difficult because these are nitty gritties, these are implementation issues. And the Indian system, we are very good in emergencies. If today there is a flood or earthquake somewhere, we can provide all the succor that we need. But when it comes to day in and day out doing something religiously and following the rules, we are much more lax. So, in terms of reforms, I think the Narasimha Rao is, I'll put him at the top. And the present Prime Minister Narendra Modi, also I'd say, is great in implementation. Not only implementation, but I was very impressed when we normally don't talk about feces. We don't talk about defecation in public. So all of us knew that we defecate publicly. But no one was willing to talk about the problem. And the problem is great because it contaminates vegetables, it contaminates the subsoil water. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had the courage to say it from the ramparts of the Red Fort. And he talks about problems which are there. It's a question of emphasis and it's a question of not only announcing policies but implementing them. And I believe Mr. Modi has done a lot in terms of better implementation.
Okay, so let's take that forward. I was going to leave it towards the end, but I think there is a momentum gathered here. Would you say that the Big Bang reforms of the sort that 1991 delivered, is that the kind of reform now India needs for the next 25 years? Or incrementalism would be fine?
Now, if you think of big ticket reforms, there may be a few, but they're not so easy to find as it was in 1991. See, when you think of the 1991 reforms, previous to that, starting from Rajagopalacharya, Rajaji, he was described as Kautilya of India. He coined the term permit license Raj, or license permit Raj. Permit license Raj, I think is the right. So we had been talking about it from as early as 1960. It took 30 years to do it. Now, if I ask this audience, these youngsters here, can you tell me a big ticket item which is waiting to be launched tomorrow? It will be much harder for us to just say, do this. These are all nitty-gritty. They're second generation.
No, suppose I were to say, if I am in the 20s, as they are, I say, we need jobs.
That's a very interesting question. Jobs is something like you saying that you want nirvana. See, jobs, I haven't said this in the book, but I often think that thank God now we don't talk about jobs in the same way as I used to hear in our young days. So we had growthless jobs. There is no growth, but you are creating jobs. It's not a problem. I mean, you can announce that tomorrow you are going to recruit 2 crore of government employees. Just that the system will become bankrupt. So what you need is jobs with growth. The problem is of jobless growth. Now, I'm not denying it, but there my little take on my little knowledge of history. We know that when the Industrial Revolution came, textile factories were burnt in England because they were worried that with all these spinning mills and ginning machines, these are going to lead to loss of jobs. But it didn't lead to loss of jobs. There were more jobs. In our lifetime, I remember the leftists used to agitate against computerization. They used to say, computers, who will get the jobs? Now, I think they underestimate human ingenuity. Machines can never replace human beings. Machines will do something which is tedious and difficult for us to do. We can do the same thing, but it will take a lot of time. What a supercomputer does, maybe we can do it if we can get a crore of individuals doing it, but it does it more efficiently. But there will be something that human beings will do, which computers cannot do. So, jobs, if you say, jobs will come when the country develops, when we have growth. So, my favorite example is think of dining tables. I mean, here, all of you sitting here, I'm almost certain that at least 95% of you will have a dining table and four chairs at your home. But I've been to many places where I have to sit on the floor and eat. So imagine all the Indian households if they have a dining table and four chairs. How many dining tables do you have to manufacture? How many carpenters do you need for that? So, immense needs. And in fact, when it comes to manufacturing and services, I'm not a fanatic. I have no problem with service growth. But I think India cannot develop without manufacturing. Everything cannot be imported from abroad. And there are many things that, and it's such a starved country in terms of development that there are plenty to do once we have the machine is moving forward and India is moving.
Shift a little aside. You've written in pages 231 to 235. It's an excellent analysis of socialism, socialist policies, socialist way of thinking, democratic socialism, etc. It's a very nice analysis of what it's all about. But I just want to step slightly aside of that and ask whether socialism and welfareism are they in conflict? Or let us say capitalism and welfareism, are they in conflict? Or if we assume that welfare is a necessary condition, as you say, for instance, poverty, you mentioned, food, you mentioned, jobs, and if welfare is necessary, then socialist capitalist becomes irrelevant.
So,
And this question is a political question. It's not an, I mean, economics is the underlying, but the expression is political.
see, I don't think there is anyone who will disagree with the basic tenet of socialism that there must be a minimum level and there must be equality. Now, equality of opportunities or equality of outcomes, that's a different question. I mean, you may believe in equality of opportunity, but you may be much brighter than me, so you will do much better with the same opportunity. So, when it comes to equality of opportunity, there cannot be any disagreement. That's the reason why we think of public health and public education. That's for giving everyone the equal opportunity. Now, beyond that, socialism and capitalism, I think these have become empty words. I mean, socialism, everyone claims to be a socialist, except for the Swatantra Party that we saw for a few years. I haven't seen any single political party that in its manifesto does not talk about socialism. It will talk about socialism and some kind of equality, however defined. So, on the broader question that you ask, do I believe that we only have to stimulate growth and not talk about or think about the people who are falling behind? I don't agree. We always have to think of the people who are left behind.
But if you've provided education, as you mentioned, if we've or taken leaps and bounds in the education sector, and though a lot needs to be done, we have taken leaps and bounds in the healthcare sector, though a lot needs to be done. If infrastructure has been built across the country, and though a lot needs to be done, isn't that in itself an empowering part of what you would say is welfareism? Why do we need to keep, I mean, this brings me back to freebies, but why do we need to keep harping on welfareism? At some point, the nation has to take the opportunities and run with them.
See, taking the opportunities and running with it depends on your initial endowment. I mean, I come from a middle class family. Many of you are coming from, I know Sri Ram College of Commerce. By the way, my Gautam sort of talked about the day he came here and he was on the behind the wings when a rock power session was going on. I started my career with Sri Ram's College of Commerce. I drew my first check. Arun Jaitley was a student here at that time. I drew my first salary check from Sri Ram College of Commerce. And after 6 months, I moved to Delhi School of Economics. Anyway, coming back to this point, the when we think of public education or public schools, I've seen the problem. I've dealt with tribal women and tribal children whose parents are uneducated. There is not a single book in the home. Now, all of you here, we have seen books right from our childhood. Mother or father used to read a book, they could teach us. But people with students with uneducated, illiterate parents suffer from an infirmity that you can't even imagine. I've seen little boys and girls who come to school only for the midday meal. So you're thinking that once you have set up the public schooling system and public health, everything will take care of itself. I don't agree. There needs to be an intervention of a very intimate kind. Going and telling the tribal woman that you need to do this. Incidentally, I mentioned one thing in this book, which is I found it very. I mean, I learned this is my notes of how I look at India. Do you know that at some point of time there was a penalty for not sending your children to school, and fines used to be imposed. Now, here is a poor family who do not have a school in the vicinity. They do not have enough money. They're not sending their boys and girls to school, and you impose a fine. I have even mentioned the amount of fine, some 5 crore or 10 crore at that time. So ultimately, the law had to be resigned because you cannot have a law that punishes people for no fault of theirs. So here, I think in terms of education and health, it's not only the provision of these services, but it must be a caring government, it's a caring society. We have to lift them. The fact that they're lying there, they will need some help. Still, there will be some left. But we need some kind of welfare system, but not too much. The balance is the most important.
Thank you. I've been just told we have only 10 minutes, so I'm going to stretch it to say 15. How many of you have questions? I will work my conversation accordingly. Any questions for Mr. Lahiri? Dr. Lahiri? Only 1, 2, 3? No women? 4? So about 4 questions. So I'll leave about 5-7 minutes at the end and quickly rush. I'll jump across several questions. One contentious issue which I have with your book, and in which broadly with all economists in general, is, please allow me to be straightforward, is the unthinking manner in which the word Hindu rate of growth is used. Even when you put the Hindu rate of growth in inverted commas, it's a disparaging term. Yes, Raj Krishna did it. And after that, perhaps he lost all his other economic accomplishments, and today is known for the guy who phrased the Hindu rate of growth at 3.5%. Today we are at 7. Is 7% the Hindu rate of growth? Related question. What is the Islamic rate of growth? What is the Christian rate of growth? What is the atheistic rate of growth? Is the Hindu rate of growth of the 70s or Hindu rate of growth? Is therefore 2020 not a Hindu anymore? I don't know. And when I see you use it, I was very disappointed, sir. Please, I'm very sorry. First you mentioned it, and then there's a whole chapter going beyond the Hindu rate of growth. So could you, I mean, even I have engaged with this and I have critiqued everybody from Raghuram Rajan to everybody. But I was surprised to find this usage. You are almost legitimizing a disparagement of the Hindu religion.
See, one of the things that I find very disappointing is our inability to laugh at ourselves. If you knew Babu Rajkrishna, whom I knew, We used to be colleagues in Delhi School of Economics. He had a fine sense of humor. He would always say Ashok Babu. Now, Hindu rate of growth, he used to say in a joking way. If anyone thinks that the Hindu rate of growth has got anything to do with Hindu, except for the fact that 80% of the population of India are Hindus, I'm sorry, I mean, they do not have a sense of humor. So, Hindu rate of growth has got nothing to do with Hinduism. And I find it very disappointing that we can't laugh at ourselves. I mean, there'll be jokes about Bengalis, there'll be jokes about Sardars, there'll be jokes about Madrasis. We should be able to take it and laugh at it.
I think I would disagree and I would end it here. But I think it's just the fact that there are no consequences that Hindus attack in terms of an attack. That we are able to laugh and you make crack jokes on Hinduism. Any other religion, you wouldn't say it. I'm going to move to the last question before I open it up. So I feel that my generation, which began our life in 92, 93, around post reforms, of which you are one of the authors, and the 25 years that passed, we to 4 trillion today, we have increased our economy by 15 times, from 270 billion to about 4 trillion today. In the next 25 years, which is the generation here, you need to take us forward to, let us say, 30 trillion. If you were to just continue with this, we are looking at a much larger economy. Sir, what are the reforms that you think are necessary to give a similar, if not a higher rate of growth over the next 25 years, from one generation to the next generation?
First, about the arithmetic. So we have done well. I'm not distracting from what we have done, but we need to do that in a consistent way for another couple of decades. Japan did it, South Korea did it, Hong Kong did it, Singapore did it, Taiwan did it, China has done it. So there is no reason why we shouldn't be able to do it. So it's actually like good length bowling. You have to keep bowling consistent. It's not growing at 6-7% one year. Japan grew at double-digit rates. Because imagine, we are the fourth largest economy in the world, but in terms of per capita income, are far behind. So what needs to be done for that? Again, I'll come back to it. Better delivery of public services in education, health, and infrastructure. Ease of doing business. Taking corruption head on and saying zero tolerance. Because what happens in corruption, not only is money wasted, but what is called is rent-seeking activity or directly unproductive activities. I've seen it in some of the states, I won't name any, it's not a political discussion, that when people lose hope that you can't earn an honest living, you can't become rich without stealing, you start stealing. So corruption has to be. So now the second generation reform is nitty-gritty, small things here, small things there, you have to fix. It's not building a big machine, the machine is already there. But you have to make sure that all the gears are running, no switch is off, and it's a much harder thing because the low-hanging fruits have already been plucked by our earlier generation. What you are facing is a problem of detail, and detailed things are much more difficult.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'll take the questions. Yeah, please. You are the UPSC aspirant, right?
Sir, good afternoon. Am I audible? So my question is that whether the PLI scheme of the government is really creating job, and this question is in the context that there's a debate whether when we are exporting the mobile phones, few economists debate that we are just importing the parts and we are assembling. So my question is whether it is really creating jobs in the country or is it just the wastage of money we are doing? Thank you, sir.
That's a future IAS, by the way.
We talked about PLI. So I've seen a debate about, I saw it in the newspaper editorial yesterday, I think, that PLI is not linked to job creation, but to production. Now, again, I'll go back to that thing. Let's not have growthless jobs. I can't imagine how production will increase and employment will go down. Employment can go up a lot, employment can go up a little, but let's not be that permit license Raj that will allow only this production which creates a lot of jobs. You don't actually know where jobs will be created. Do we know what India should produce? We don't know. We should leave it to the businessmen. Businessmen should decide what will be produced, where it will be produced, how it will be produced, when it will be produced. Now, on your question, I've seen this debate about whether by exporting, by setting up this mobile phones, chip manufacturing, we are importing more than we are exporting. Now, that's absolutely impossible. I'll tell you why. There may be a bit of subsidy, but no business organization will set up a factory here if they're importing more than what they're exporting. There must be some value added. Unless there is value added, you can't make profits. And there is also this question of phasing. If you look at the history of chip making, you know Taiwan is the biggest manufacturer of chips now. What was the name? I'm forgetting the name of that. Yeah. Now, when they set up, in the beginning it's a very limited operation. But over time you gain expertise. You have to start somewhere. And I think this is the right time for India to capture a position. A vacuum has been created by uncertainty about the geopolitics involving China. So, shame on us if we cannot get some of the supply chain portions located in India. What is it that India doesn't have that China has? Maybe physical infrastructure, maybe education, health, but let's solve those.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, with respect to your perspectives on socialism, what is your take on universal basic income? Should it be implemented or not?
Our population is about 130 crore. Divided by 5, how much do you get? You get about 26 crore or so. Now, 26 crore families, you give 1,000 rupees per month. Now, calculate it. 1,000 rupees means 26,000 crore every month. Multiplied by 12, you will get about 33 lakh crores. Now, you will say that, well, you give this and the people will spend, but where will the money come from? It's basically you're saying, you're throwing up your hands that I can't deal with it. I can't identify who is rich and who is poor. So let's give it to everyone. Now, you can have a system of negative income tax. Negative income tax is if you are filing your returns and your income falls below a particular level, we'll give you the money. But as you know, the number of people who file income tax returns in India is very few. So, universal basic income, I have no problems, except for the fact that will turn the fiscal system topsy-turvy, completely topsy-turvy. This is the amount of money. I mean, it's basically, you will say that, well, you give universal basic education, increase the income tax on the rich, so you'll get back what. It's like giving the money in one hand and taking the money back. It will be a very convoluted system. I'm not persuaded that we are in a position to do that in a meaningful way.
So the current economic model we are following, it is leading to the steady decline of our village economies. Many villages are becoming empty in the process. On the other hand, it's leading to unsustainable urbanization, the growth of slums, etc. So do we need a new economic model or amendments to our present economic model so that this process may be reversed or at least a balance may be struck between those two? Because India is primarily has been a rural country, and I think that is the soul of India, our villages.
Now, this view, this is the Luddite view. And Mahatma Gandhi the father of the nation, he also believed in that. And I find a bit of romanticism in it. No country has ever done it. See, why do we need urban centers? Urban centers because you have a concentration of people. You are selling dal, I am selling rice if we are close by. But if you are in your village, I am in my village, it becomes very difficult. Cities are hubs. And throughout human history, you look at countries, you will find urbanization is unstoppable. And if the agriculture, the contribution of agriculture to GDP is going down, right now it's around 16, 17%. It will go down even further. In the United States, last time I saw the number, it was around 3%. So if India has a future, agriculture will go down in terms of importance, rural population will go down. In the face of it, saying, no, no, we'll have self sufficient villages where the Jolu will, the weaver will weave a cloth, the shoemaker will make shoes. It's pipe dream. Now the issue is we must do it systematically. The problem with India is unplanned urbanization. Forget Delhi, Bombay, Kolkata, Chennai, even Bangalore. You go to Mofussil towns, it's pathetic. Open sewers, no city planning, no master plans, congested roads. So, for heaven's sake, I think what we need to do is to have planned urbanization. And unless we have planned urbanization, we are doomed because this migration from villages to towns, you can't stop it. It will happen and expedite. So, you need good city planning.
Thank you. So before I end, one last question to you. What's your message to the young people in and outside this room on economics? I mean, what should the young of India be looking forward to? What should they be contributing to? India is rising. What is their role here?
First is excellence. Your students excel in your field. I'm not saying you have to win a Nobel Prize, but whatever you're learning, you need to stand up and say, we know as much as anyone knows of our peers abroad. Second, be intolerant about corruption, be intolerant about inefficiencies. Whenever you see that something needs to be changed, raise your voice. See, you are the principals. Political leaders and political parties are your agents. You vote. You will be voting. You will decide the future of India and take your job very seriously. You are the generation on whom will depend the future of our provident funds. How much? I mean, if you are setting up companies which are giving great returns, I'll do well in my mutual funds. I'll be happy. If you're producing all the goods efficiently and it's in the market at reasonable prices, I'll be able to buy them. And we'll have the satisfaction in our twilight years that we left the country in good hands, in better hands than ours. Thank you.